and happy Valentine's Day to all of you who are out there watching. This is Cassie Weyer, the Park Director for Brimfield Township, and today I'm going to teach you how to make these yarn pom-pom flowers. Whether you're looking for a Valentine's Day activity or maybe a last-minute gift for someone, these are a really great craft because you can make them with things that you probably already have in your house. So the first thing you're going to need is a fork, preferably a large serving fork, a pair of scissors, and your yarn. First, we're going to section off a section of yarn that's about 8 to 10 feet long. You can experiment with different lengths of yarn, but the longer the piece of yarn that you use, the more dense your pom-pom is going to be. You can leave your yarn attached to your yarn ball if you would like, or you can cut it off. I chose to leave it attached to the yarn. Now we're going to wrap our yarn around the tines of our fork. I used my finger to hold the yarn wrapping in place so that it doesn't slide up and down the tines of the fork. We're going to want to leave a small opening at the bottom of the wrapping because we're going to thread the end of the yarn through the tines of the fork. Also, you want to make sure that your yarn wrapping doesn't slide off the end of the fork. This happened to me the first time I tried to make the pom-pom, but if it happens to you, it's okay. It's really easy to wrap the yarn around the fork again. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to thread the end of the yarn through the center tine of the fork. This is kind of difficult to do even if you have really long nails like I do. So I found it useful to use a pencil to guide the yarn through the center of the fork. My yarn kind of slid off to the side. If this happens to you, you want to reposition it down the center of your yarn wrapping. So we're going to thread it through once. Then we're going to flip our fork over, go up through the center tines on the top of the wrapping, and then we're going to thread it through the bottom once again. This is going to cinch our yarn wrapping around the center, and this will be the center of our pom-pom. Once you've wrapped your yarn around once, you can choose to double wrap it if you'd like to make it more secure. Once you've wrapped your yarn, you're going to slide the end of the yarn underneath the section that we just wrapped over. Then you're going to want to make sure once again that you pull that very tight. Then we're going to take the other end, the other loose end, and we are going to tie both ends together. Once again, pulling very, very tight. The tighter that you have it, the tighter the center of your pom-pom is going to be, and it's going to give it more of a rounded look. I like to double knot it just to make sure it's very secure because you don't want your pom-pom to unravel, especially after you've already cut it. Now for my favorite part. We're going to slide our yarn wrapping off the fork, and we can go ahead and set our fork aside now. We are going to take our scissors and we are going to cut the ends of the yarn wrapping. This is why it's important to tie that center really tight, because once we cut these the loops, the yarn will no longer be wrapped. So if that center comes undone, then you're going to have just a bunch of tiny yarn pieces and you're going to have to start over. I found that this works a lot better if you have sharper scissors. These are just my desk scissors, so they weren't the best for this project, but they still work. So you're going to slide the end of the scissors underneath each loop, and you're going to cut them. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly centered, but you're going to cut these loops, and slowly you're going to watch your pom-pom emerge. This is my favorite part. I like to take the ends of the scissors and really fluff out my pom-pom. And there you go. You're still going to be able to see that center wrapping, so you're going to want to adjust these yarn pieces to kind of cover up that the cinch center part. And if you left some strands at the end, these are great for attaching your pom-pom. So if you want to try another method to make a pom-pom, you can use your hands instead of a fork. So this is going to be the exact same method that we used before. Just imagine that your 4 fingers are the 4 tines of your fork. Don't make the same mistake I did and tie the yarn too tight, because your fingers will start to turn purple. So we want to make sure that everybody's safe while we do that, and that's no fun. So I made sure the second time that I did this to wiggle my fingers as I was working on the project to make sure I wasn't tying my yarn too tight. If you tie the yarn too tight around your fingers also, you're going to have a difficult time threading the end of your yarn through the center of your middle fingers. Since your fingers are wider and bigger than your fork, you're going to end up with a larger, wider pom-pom. Make sure to keep wiggling your fingers. Then we're going to thread the yarn between our middle and ring fingers, sorry. You're going to thread the yarn between your middle and ring fingers. And just like we did before, you're going to slide it off of your fingers, and you are going to tie your knot. It's a little bit harder because you need both hands to tie the knot. So I would recommend sliding the yarn off of your fingers first and then tying your knot. So same thing, we're going to make sure that we pull it really, really tight around the center. And then we're going to cut all of our loops and make our pom-pom. So here's a side-by-side comparison. The one on the right is the one we made with the fork, and the one on the left is the one we made with our hand. So depending on what type of pom-pom you're looking for, you might want to try both methods. So for my flowers, I experimented with a couple different types of yarn, and I had this weird kind of pink crimpy yarn that I didn't really have a plan for. And when I used it, it really fluffed up well, and I think it really looks like realistic flowers. If you want to go for an unrealistic look, you can use whatever type of yarn that you want. You can use a thicker weight of yarn, you can use different textures, different colors, different styles, but for me, I thought this was a great plan for this yarn that had been sitting around my house for a long time, and I really liked the look of them. So that's what I chose to use for my flowers. Next, you're going to select what you're going to use as the stem for your flowers. I chose to use sticks for this because I was going for a more natural look, but you can use whatever you'd like. It's really up to you. If you're using sticks from outside, it's probably best to let them dry for a few days before using them. Now we're going to find the center of our pom-pom, and we are going to insert whatever you're using for the stem. So that should be enough to hold your pom-pom in place, but if you want a little additional security, we're going to take those 2 loose ends in the top of the pom-pom and we're going to wrap them around the stem. So I'm going to take a few pieces of my pom-pom and comb them down. And then I'm going to grab one of these loose ends and wrap it around some of the yarn pieces. So we'll wrap it around until there's about 1 inch to 1/2 inch of yarn left. And then we'll take the other yarn end and wrap it around the opposite way. When we're finished, we'll take those two loose ends and we will tie them in a knot. And once you've done that, you can trim off those ends and you are all finished. So now you're going to do this to the remainder of your flowers, and when you're all done, you're going to have a nice bouquet. You can wrap your bouquet in ribbon or put them in a vase. I chose to put them in a vase, and they are going to sit on my desk at work. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this craft. And stay tuned and follow our social media pages, YouTube channel, and website for more upcoming programs and events from Brimfield Township. So thank you so much and enjoy your Valentine's Day weekend.